Hi, welcome to this video. In this video we will discuss the mid-office processes, and that's about underwriting and origination. So we talk about the application of the mortgage, the process of producing interest letters, underwriting, the binding offer, which is sent to the consumer, and this process ends with passing the mortgage deed at the notary. We have a few overview slides, and I will explain step by step what will happen in the process. And here you see the first step. It's about the application and producing the interest letter. And on the left hand side you see the actors who is doing what. The lender, the IFA, that's the independent financial advisor, the consumer, and external sources, systems, or entities. This process flow is including an IFA. If we have mortgage advisors who are working for a bank and offering mortgages in the branch office, the process is a little bit different, but the majority of all the mortgages in the Netherlands are originated through IFAs. So this is the most common process. After giving advice, the advisor will send an application to the lender, and they will use what is called HDN, which stands for the Mortgage Data Network. So all applications are sent in electronically, and they are received by a mid-office system, for instance, the system from the lender, but it can also be the system from the service provider like Kion and Stater. In some cases, the application is completed with what we call source data. Source data is data from an original source, for instance, one of our state agencies that keep salary information, or maybe data from the land registry, and in the future maybe from the tax bureau. And that data is used to complete the application. The mid-office then starts to appraise the application, starts to evaluate the application, and one of the steps is checking the BKR. And the BKR is the credit bureau in the Netherlands, and there you can check two things. First of all, does the consumer have consumer loans and how much? And the other thing you can check is the consumer in default in another financial product? And that's important to for the underwriting process, for the acceptance, because if you have a bad credit history in the BKR, the lender will definitely not send you an interest letter, because they don't want you to you're not accepted as a client, as a mortgage client. If the application is okay and it complies to all the conditions for the mortgage, then the mid-office system creates what we call an interest letter. And an interest letter is not an offer, but an interest letter is like a guarantee for a certain interest rate. So the letter says, dear customer, if in the future all the data can be checked, we offer you this interest for your new mortgage. So the application is not complete, and especially we need proof of all the data which is in the application. But if that all is okay, the customer receives a guarantee for a certain interest rate, and that's put in the interest letter. The interest letter is sent to the customer and to the financial advisor, so he receives it in his system and the consumer can retrieve the interest letter from the consumer portal. The consumer will sign the interest letter and then it's sent back to the lender to the mid-office system. So when we complete this process step, the consumer knows, okay, if I can prove all the data which is in the application, I know I will get a mortgage with this and this interest rate. The next step is the real underwriting, and that will end with what we call a binding offer. So the consumer will collect all kinds of documents to prove the data in the application. So he will have an appraisal report, he will have data from his boss, from the company he works for. Maybe there is data from a divorce earlier. All kinds of data has to be sent in to prove the data which is in the application. And it can be sent by the consumer portal, so the consumer can upload the documents themselves. Maybe he just gives it to his advisor and the advisor uses his software to send all the documentation to the mid-office. We need a new appraisal for the property. So there will be an appraiser request, and in the Netherlands we have a certain entity that evaluates appraisals, so it's a kind of quality assurance, and the lender can check if the quality assurance is done for a certain appraiser of the property. If you're working for yourself, or you have a company, then the lender needs annual reports, and the annual reports are reviewed by an external expert, and this expert will calculate, okay, what is the income for this person, for this consumer, and with what income do we calculate in the mid-office system. So the external expert, they calculate the income, and that's important for our LTI guidelines, and the LTI stands for loan to income. We check the BKR again, and if everything is okay, and if the underwriting is completed, then the system will create what we call a binding offer. And the binding offer comes with other documents, and there is a lot of regulation around these documents, European regulation. The binding offer is sent to the financial advisor and then to the consumer, and that offer the consumer signs and is sent back to the lender. On average, the time between sending in the first application and the interest letter is, I would say, maybe a few days. The time between sending in the application and the binding offer is probably a few weeks, and then it can take even a few months before you are really passing the deed and the mortgage is originated. And that's because you have to wait for the people who sell the house to move, so you can move into the house, and that's also the last step of the process. We know at what date the house will be sold. Selling a house in the Netherlands is always done at the notary. So we need the notary needs information, and the lender needs information. Okay, who is the notary and when is the date? And then the lender sends all kinds of instructions to the notary. He will prepare the deeds. he will receive the money for buying the house, and the notary will pass the deed. If everything is completed, the notary will give notice to the lender, and on that moment the loan is already in the back office system of the lender, so it's finished in the mid office system, and it's in the back office system. What we often see in the Netherlands is that financial flows here, in terms of really transfer of money, are always managed by back office systems and not by mid office systems. So after the notice of the notary, we know the mortgage is there, all the paperwork is done, and then we can activate the loan. And when the loan is activated, the consumer will see his loan in his consumer portal, and that's a portal from the lender, where the portal during the origination often is the portal which belongs to the IFA organization, the financial advisor. Okay, that was the underwriting and origination process briefly. If you want to learn more, I think interesting modules to follow are Who is Who in the Zoo. It gives more insights in the parties involved in the processes. And we have a module about back office processes. Okay, that's it. I hope to see you soon at one of our sessions, and I would say good luck with all the study.